Hey, what's up at 9:40, March 12th? And shittiness. And shitty America created by shitty Republicans. I'm gonna try to bitch while I play awesome Civ 4 Caveman to Cosmos. It's gonna be difficult, but let's try and do it. So, Civ 4, camera activated. Let's do this. So, I have been throughout the past few months trying to get neurologist, a new one because I haven't had one for the past few years, like 5 or 10 years. Been trying to get a new one and have been met by various roadblocks / upsets. And it's just, I don't know, really started to piss me off. I mean, the difficulty of doing all this crap, I really believe, is engineered into this system by basically Republicans. Let's just use kind of placeholder terms of catch-all terms, Republicans, rich people, all that shit. Because that's what they are. Republicans are the tools of rich people, billionaires, that sort of thing. And, if you believe otherwise, you're a tool and a fool tool. You haven't been paying attention. You haven't been paying enough attention over the course of your lifetime. You have been believing the propaganda bullshit. All right. And if you're like, oh, the Democrats are equal or the real evil or something like that, then you haven't been paying enough attention. If you think the Democrats are equal or share an equal part of the blame, again, you haven't been paying enough attention. What the fuck is this shit? I'm bitching at the game now. Just because someone or something is not as good as another thing, or, suboptimal, doesn't make it the devil. There we go. Go there. when one thing is this is how I usually phrase like my appraisal of things. It's like I don't like the Democrats, but for the Democrats, they usually, at least I get some benefit from the Democrats, even if it's very marginal a lot of the time. But Republicans, for me being a poor person, the Republicans actively harm people like me. They do active damage to me. It's like a guy. It's like I'm on the street and Democrats just walk by me. But the Republicans are a guy on the street that while he's walking by me, he looks at me and he just punches me in the balls. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. The dude just came up to me and punches me in the balls and then maybe picks up a board, a 2x4, and while I'm going, oh, it just whacks me in the face or the back of the head with it. And he's just standing there laughing like, man, that was great. That was great. I loved it. And dude's standing there in a suit and then goes to the curb and gets in his fucking BMW, a white BMW, because, he's a douche. And then drives off. He doesn't get arrested or anything. He just drives off. And then I get picked up in an ambulance and go to the hospital. Ambulance ride isn't free. Hospital isn't free. Now, for me, in my specific case, they're both free. But for most people, neither of them would be free. Even if you had really good insurance in this country, there would be deductibles and co-pays and all that shit. So, yeah, there's the case. Now, you can bitch about like Canadian healthcare, European healthcare and shit, but even if you did have to pay a deductible or copay, you can talk to Canadians and Europeans and be like, oh, I had to pay 15, whatever the fuck their currency is. Yeah, I had to pay $15. And in America, people would be like, $15? My bill was $2,500. 15? And they'd be like, my bill went up to $50. And they'd be outraged. They'd be gathering outside their fucking city hall, protesting. They'd be like, this is unreal. This is not possible. Fire these motherfuckers. They'd be outside there with torches. Over $50 fucking in relative terms. And we're getting billed for thousands of dollars, and we're just sitting here taking it like a guy bending over, totally happy, getting fucked by these healthcare companies, private healthcare companies, going, yeah. We only made $100 billion. Our CEOs and boards and shareholders only got a few $100 million to a few $1 billion each. Well, we're going to have to cut people from the staff. We're going to have to let you go. Oh, You're going to let me go? Yeah, I'm going to stay. Yeah, I don't like the idea of being let go. I'm going to choose to stay and keep my job. I don't accept being let go, so I'm going to keep my job and continue working. I like my job. I like being a slave nurse, and only getting paid 45,000 or whatever the fuck it is, and barely getting to take a day off because I'm so fucking needed in this shitty healthcare system. And the higher up doctors, they get paid a lot, but they have to, they usually have to work a shitload of hours. And, from what I understand, the interns have to work a shitload of hours and don't, proportional to their expenses and medical debt and everything, they don't get paid very much. They get paid usually a lot more than minimum wage, but they have a shitload of medical debt most of the time, unless they were raised on a silver spoon up their ass. Or they managed to get some kind of scholarship, some sort of special circumstance. But, back to my situation. Damn it. Fucking selecting shit to build in my city. I gotta set up a nice big queue. Alright, build the foundry first. Excellent. And all of that feeds back into why I can't find a fucking neurologist, because, all of this gets back to why I can't find a neurologist, because, it's part of the whole making money and the Republican grand plan of screwing everybody out of everything. Over the course of my lifetime, which is equivalent to most of my generation, they screwed it. They screwed my generation. The millennials, and I was right on the borderline. I was born in 82, so anyone between like 76, born in like, say, 76 to 86 has just been screwed out of getting a decent existence, getting a decent opportunity, kind of. Not necessarily, really, but how do I put it? Getting that 1950s cheery easy. Da, 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 da. Life is grand. You know, let's go. Let's go to high school, and you know, everything's nice and easy. Blah blah blah. Now, for if you were black or whatever, everything was totally different. But you know, the fucking the kids that are like 18 years old are like, oh, you can't say this word, and you can't say that word, and you know, you can't say you can't say the hard R. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? That's bullshit. All right, that is bullshit. All right, you can't say. I grew up in high school, and they were like, you can't say. I can't even say the words that you can't say because people don't have a fucking thick skin because they're a bunch of people are a bunch of pussies is what they are, and you probably can't say that word anymore. I can't describe how pussy people are nowadays. And you know what? That's kind of one thing Republicans are kind of right at. You know, people are a bunch of goddamn pussies, and I think we need to bash Republicans right in their face. We need to ball punch Republicans is what we need to do. Because they're basically a bunch of evil bastards. And they deserve some hardcore ball punching right now. All of them. What the fuck is this? Where do I go? I don't know. Fucking up here somewhere. I mean, all of them. The politicians and the electorate for Republicans and conservatives deserve some hardcore ball punching. Metaphorical and literal. A good kick in their reality core, because seriously, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about with basically everything they believe in. Everything they believe in is a bunch of horse shit. It's a big fantasy. And you know, they need to fucking get out of their fucking la la land and realize it. You know, their adherence to the free market will deal with everything. No, it won't. It won't. There's, you know, look back at history for forever, maybe, and realize the free market is a piece of shit. It fails continuously. It's like every 40, 50 years, the free market crashes in on itself like a repeating black hole of human shit. And evaporates the world economy. If you just let it, there we go. If you just leave it to itself, it just destroys the entire world and leads to, you know, devastation of the economy and usually a world war. If the world is connected enough. Or if the world isn't connected enough, pockets of regional wars. And regional economic disruptions, regional, I'm doing stuff. food disruptions, herd donkey, all sorts of fucked up shit. And either they don't want to admit that, or they're not paying enough attention, or they're just like fucking worshiping money so much, they just don't give a shit. What the fuck is this? Mm. Put it there. And they always use the counter argue. Well, what about communism? What about fascism? And I'm like, just don't listen to that, because they don't know what they're talking about. They just say, what about communism? And they're like, well, all of the examples of communism were basically, who am I going to kill with this? Well, I may want to go with this. Holy shit. Here we go. Yeah, the examples of communism we have, of a failing communist state that we have, the best example of a failed communist state that we have is Russia, the USSR. And that was more of a dictatorship, and that was the Communist Party. And that was done wrong, and China's done much better by allowing itself to evolve, being more willing to did I save? I think I did. Okay. By allowing themselves to analyze, to look at the state and see, are we doing shitty? Are we objectively doing shitty, or are we doing good? Russia, USSR, was not able to do that. You have to do that as a society. Look at yourself and say, are we doing good or are we doing bad? And if we're doing shitty, we need to do something different. And Trump and the Republicans are doing shitty, and they're not willing to change. They are not fucking willing to fucking change. You're keeping steady on course, and that's the problem with conservative. They're conservative. They're staying steady on course. Well, there you go. Conservatism is inherently conservative. if you look at the word conservative, it's exactly what it is. It's staying stagnant and doing the same old shit all the time and not being willing to change. Being a little conservative is good, but you don't want to be overly conservative because, that's what causes you to go extinct. You don't want to be overly progressive because then you're just going to die too. You're going to make too hasty of a move. You're going to be changing all the time, and you're going to end up jumping off a cliff. So you want to make calculated moves. You want to analyze where you're going before you go there. You want to take calculated risks, and you want to hedge your bets a little bit. You want to have redundancy in your system. That's why we have 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, a liver that can regenerate itself. You seeing the pattern here? But conservatives don't do that shit. Because they're stupid. That used to be why our system liked to have like to be very heavy on socialist principles with a little bit of marketism in there. Not too much. It used to be very, very regulated market ideas. Personally, I'm pretty opposed to market capitalism. But, whatever. In a system, in a society with other people in it, whatever. We're going to have to let other people have their say and stuff. So. Yeah, okay. Crocodile, yes. Put that there. And also, to the point I just said, I don't necessarily trust some other person to not be like, if we did have full state stuff, some other asshole to just be like, completely take control of everything and do exactly like Trump is doing now, to just try and grab all the power and do exactly what he's doing. So there you go. Oh, son of a bitch, there's a whale. You know, what Trump is doing now, it was brought on by, I I can't remember who the first president was to get away with unilaterally starting bombing stuff. I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson that started the Vietnam War. I can't be sure though, but I think it was LBJ that saw Vietnam starting to like go communist, and he was like, "Well, we need to protect South Vietnam from. We need to prevent South Vietnam from falling to the Viet Cong," and so they started bombing it, and then they were like, "Well, we need to send in some advisors," and then the advisors turned into 5,000 troops, and 5,000 became 10,000, 10,000 became 20,000, 20, 40, 40, 80, and then it's just like all this stuff. And before you knew it, there were 70,000 plus soldiers dead without without a formal congressional declaration at the beginning, at least. And it lasted until, I mean, whoever it was, I don't know. I think I think Nixon got elected on the ending Vietnam. And who knows what's going to happen in Iraq or Iran. If Iran is going to be the next Vietnam, how it's just going to be bombing, and it's going to just be, you know, bombing and advisors, and it's going to be just, 1,000 ground troops, and then 2,000 ground troops, and then 4,000. I mean, just this, just that, and then, oh, we're not going to have elections. Trump is going to have to stay in. Right? What the fuck happens if he says you're going to have to suspend the midterms? Is anybody going to go down for that? Is anybody going to be prepared to deal with that? Because I, I hope people aren't going to be okay with that. I hope people are going to start killing some cops or some whoever. I hope people are going to seriously start considering getting violent over that. That's got to be a line that you got to start killing some motherfuckers over. I think if I think at that point nonviolence is no longer an option. I think. And if President and if Trump is like, well, now I gotta like nationalize the guard. I think the guard troops are gonna have to be like, no. The National Guard troops are gonna have to be like, no. You're doing something blatantly illegal, and no. And military troops are gonna have to be like, yeah, no. You have to be like, yeah, we're not, no. And some people around him are gonna be like, no, you're no, you're just no. You're doing some straight up illegal shit, and it's no, just fucking no. And if they don't, then those people fucking gotta fucking go. And that's all that is. That's it. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. Anyways, private healthcare. This is the summary. Private healthcare is bullshit. And everything Republicans and conservatives stand for is a bunch of shit. I would say that's my opinion, but that's actual fact. Some other people think it's opinion, but it's fact. And it's also barbaric. And at some point, the rest of humanity will get on board with me. I just, like with like pretty much everything, I'm just early on it. I think other people are early on it with me, but I don't think I'm unique in that opinion. I'm not the first one that has realized that all of this shit, that everybody, this lie that has been foisted on most of humanity is a bunch of garbage. That money is barbaric. I've said that before, and people can't realize it. That profit is barbaric. It is barbaric. And I realize a lot of people will be like, this guy's crazy, but I don't know how you can't go through logical steps and realize that money is barbaric. Money is barbaric. It's like a tool of war. Money is warfare. And if you can't realize that, I have a hard time actually discussing stuff with you. If you can't realize that basic fact, then it's almost hard for me to discuss almost everything else with you that goes on in society. You have to first realize that money itself is barbaric. You have to use that word, barbaric. It's barbaric, all right? It's primitive. It's everything. You have to use all that tool. It's like a monkey flinging shit. All right? Understand that. And then come to me and we can have a conversation about things. All right. Until then, just stay over there in the cave with the other fools. And, whatever. So, anyways, tax rich people, kneecap rich people, boobs.